This is Pucks, Putts, and Properties, and this is episode 2. He's Danny Taylor, our Mark Strachan. We're with Century 21 Heritage Group, ex-pro hockey goalie, and myself, a washed-up former golf pro. And today I've got a really exciting thing here for Danny. If you're not watching this on camera, what I'm showing here is a Belleville Senators jersey. And the connection between Danny's family and my family. Danny actually set this up. He didn't know I was going to do this today, but he actually got this for my father-in-law for his birthday. So he was doing good deeds far before I even knew him, and super incredible. So what it was, your father-in-law was approached by my brother-in-law to get this gift for his birthday, and this is a signed Belleville Senators jersey by the entire team. So Danny didn't even know a thing about this, but today I'm starting the podcast by thanking him for hooking this up for my father-in-law. It's a prized possession to him. I actually have the plastic bag that he keeps it in. He doesn't want any stains on it, and my life is in my hands taking this from him. He's a huge Senators fan, by the way. Danny, go.
No, just I'm happy that he loves it as much as he does. I mean,
yeah,
it's funny you do these things all the time when you're playing, and when you're in that little bubble, you don't really realize sometimes the impact it can have on people. Because at the time you're just playing hockey, you're doing what you love, you're almost like a kid.
Right.
You don't realize the impact sometimes it can have on people. And
just a cool deed that was done for my family. So thank you. We'll go through it after, because I want to find out where your signature is actually on this. And maybe we'll post that on Instagram after. But yeah, episode 2, we'll talk a little bit about sports. Maybe
I'm really excited
politics
to get
today.
On the pod. Last time at our first one, and I'm excited for this next one, because I think there's a lot to talk about.
So what's going on in your life these days?
Minor hockey starting right back up again. We're in Peterborough this weekend. We've got tournaments here from, I don't know. I'll be on the 4-1 almost every weekend from here on out till, I would say, Christmas. But don't wish it away. It's a great time of our lives. Once it's gone, you can never really get it back. So.
And I'm starting to feel like there's an upturn, certainly in my business. How about you?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, you certainly got to know your stuff. And you can talk about it as well. Like, the market has changed. I would say there's 3 different leagues. I would say between 400,000 and 600,000 is where most of the transactions are happening right now, from what I'm seeing. And then you got your 600 to probably 1.1, 1.2 is that middle ground. People have houses to sell to get into the next one. And then obviously you got your 1.3 plus, what have you. Most of that stuff has not been affected, especially the new builds. There's still a premium on new builds as well as waterfront properties. So if it's new waterfront, you haven't lost much, but obviously a lot of the transactions are happening in the 400 to 600 range.
And we're going to dig into an amazing opportunity out in Odessa with Linas, our broker, when he jumps on here. Looking forward to that. But let's talk about what's going on in some sports news. Did you see the arrest from Tyreek Hill on the way to the stadium?
I saw I saw it on Instagram, just the arrest. Yeah. What were your thoughts?
Well, as I approach life with most anything, and I don't want to get into the race debate here, but he wasn't totally innocent to the whole thing. It was something about him not wanting to roll his window down. And, when I find myself in sticky situations, it's always best to just listen to the authorities and kind of roll with the punches. So he wasn't completely innocent to the whole thing. However, we've kind of seen some funny situations with athletes and them being arrested on their way to their venue in the last little while. Think of Scotty Scheffler, of course. Just a wild scene there with Scotty getting arrested right in the parking lot of the golf course.
Yeah, explain that one to everybody, because he wasn't even a part of it. He was just a witness of the accident. Am I right in that?
Though the accident happened hours before, and they just sent more police officers to the area. So there was police officers at the grounds of the golf course that weren't originally supposed to be at the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And when he showed up, he was doing as they normally do, because the players have a little bit more access and are kind of given quicker entry into the grounds of the facility. And he felt that one of the officers was waving him forward while another officer tried to stop him and jumped on the vehicle to try to stop him. Just an outrageous scene. Scotty gets arrested. He's warming up in a jail cell for I don't want to say it was the second or third round of the PGA Championship. Just crazy that we're seeing these scenes. And then Tyreek Hill, did you see his touchdown celebration in that game?
So did Tyreek end up playing that day?
Yeah, he ended up playing, and he mimicked being arrested in the end zone as a celebration. Pretty funny.
Yeah, you got.
I mean, yeah, just some funny sports gossip. Yeah. Oh, the other cool one was Roberto Luongo responding to an ad to be an emergency backup in beer league. And you and I chatted briefly about this yesterday. What are your thoughts on that as a former pro goalie, him just jumping into a beer league? What a beauty.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on that. One, I don't know many retired goalies, especially goalies that played that long, that actually ever jump back in the net. Like, obviously, some people do it for alumni games, but this is a beer league. This is a beer league game, probably around 9 or 10 at night, and I know Roberto's like very well known to be involved in the community. So like A+ to him to just showing up on something like so random, responding to a Facebook ad looking for a goalie. Like, this guy is like a first ballot Hall of Famer. And what a guy. There's a lot of goalies like never play goalie again. They always go play forward or D. They want to get as far away from the net as possible. Just like myself, I can't. It's almost like you're on an island out there, always talking to yourself. At least when you're a forward or D, you can get out there and start chirping guys for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I know your body has been through the ringer with the years that you played goal. Are you even capable of getting back into net? Like, would you be able to move around very well anymore?
No, I'm not. I would say I'm like, I'd need at least a hip surgery on the one side, and then I'm sure I'll be probably 2-3 years down the road that I'll need another hip surgery on the other side. So, but you know what? If that's the worst thing I had for 16 years professional, like, I'll take it. Like, a lot of the players that I played with that have played that long either have shoulders that they'll never be the same, head injuries that'll never be the same. So for playing 16 years and all I need to do is to go into it for a hip surgery for a quick scope, I think I'll take that all day long.
But your days of actually doing any rec hockey or anything like that in net are over?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah. But you're an okay skater playing D or forward?
Yeah, I get around okay out there. It's just nice to get the sweat going, because after you're done playing hockey, it's really hard to get the heart rate up. And you can only do so much in the gym, but there's nothing like going out there and just kind of getting together with the guys, let alone on the ice, just off the ice, to be honest. That's probably what, if you talk to anybody that's played a long time, retired, they just miss the dressing room. And it didn't, the on ice is fun, obviously, but most of it's just the dressing room banter.
Yeah. So we actually have a Kingston Hockey League organizer waiting for us, and we're going to bring him in. He actually happens to also be our managing broker here at Century 21 Heritage Group, but we'll bring Linas in. He's going to talk. He's going to talk about an amazing build that we have going on in Odessa and why Kingston's prime for investors. Market, as he was explaining, the Toronto GTA market's been really saturated with investors in that area. So we welcome Linas Kilius, our managing broker, today.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Mark. I mean, I think it's hilarious because I do play hockey with Mark as well. I can already tell he's like talking to Danny's agent, trying to get him signed up. So he's probing with all these questions. Danny. He's thinking that you as a goalie at like 20% is going to be like 10 times better than any of the goalies we have playing rec with us. So yeah.
So if I put an ad
Like
out there, I want you to respond and bring
Well,
me in as
you
the
know,
ringer.
if you want me to play goalie, I will play goalie, but with my forward gear. So we'll be going 6-on-5 for the whole game.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
yeah,
fun fact when
welcome.
Thanks. Fun fact when Danny plays out as a player, he wears a Jofa helmet. You don't see those too often. So
Jofa
like seeing
helmet,
that.
no visor, but a mouth guard. So
Yeah, you got to protect those pearly whites, right? You got a great smile.
you have to, yeah, exactly. But you know what? Even if they do get damaged, my wife has dental, so that's a positive. Because
It's
that's
not a
not
way
cheap.
of looking at it, you know.
Yeah,
Should try and do their best not to damage them. Not worried about just like, I'm covered if they are, because
yeah.
dental surgery is not fun. I've had it before.
Something's gone seriously wrong as a goalie if your teeth have been damaged.
Yeah, I mean, these two front teeth are fake. I got those knocked out when I was 16 playing junior hockey in Cornwall.
In net?
In net, yeah, and it didn't even happen during the game. It was during warm up. Yeah,
Oh, geez.
so yeah, this one's one of them's a peg. So they've put there's like a metal peg in there that's nicely capped, and then the other one's been shaved down. So they're both fake, but fun fact on the pod.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got
so
a peg
Linus,
tooth too.
Yeah,
Got hit by a baseball playing softball. Just took one right here and popped the tooth right out. So I had to get it put back in. So it's an implant as well. Yeah. We both got pegs in the front teeth.
so you know that it's not fun in there, right?
It's not fun. Doesn't matter how good your dental coverage is. It's still not fun.
Still sucks. Yeah, and they won't allow you to
Sorry,
take you out. Like normally, you'd like, hey, can you just put me out for 5 hours and then just wake up? But they won't.
Not worth
It's
the
got to be
risk, I
some
guess.
kind of waiver. Yeah, we don't want to go in too much into the health the health industry here in Canada. So what do you got for us, Mark?
Well, amazing opportunity coming up in Odessa and a launch event this Saturday that we brought Linus on to kind of run us through. So go ahead. What's going on out in Odessa with one of our brokerages listings?
Yeah, so we've got a builder that we're working with. They're creating a development out in Odessa. The name of the community is Golden Haven is the name of the community. Golden Falcon is the name of the builder. They're building 80 lots out there, detached homes, a really great price point from 600,000 is the starting point. And one of the awesome things, especially for the investment side, is that the builder will actually build in secondary dwellings into the new builds too. So it's all set up. So you can just come in turnkey as an investor. And we've actually got a partner in terms of a property management company, Jensen Property Management. Sean Jensen, fun fact, used to be with Century 21, not Heritage Group, Century 21 Limestone when that existed. But he's now running a property management company. He's giving a great deal to anyone who's looking on investing in these properties. One thing Mark was alluding to as I was interrupting him about hockey talk is that there are a lot of people in the GTA that are starting to kind of turn their eyes towards Kingston with good reason. Like you look at the GTA, the benchmark price for a detached home, the GTA is something like around 1.5 million. Here it's only 600 and some odd thousand. So you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, but rental prices are still fairly high compared to the cost of the homes. They call that the price to rent ratio. The price to rent ratio here is fairly low compared to most cities. So it is a lot more attractive for those investors to come in and have rentals in Kingston. And in the GTA, like that's just not happening. Like you bleed cash flow in the GTA. You're just hoping that the price of the house goes up. Whereas in Kingston, it's a lot more of a financially viable alternative, like it's an unsaturated, untapped market. I was talking to Aaron Richardson, my partner in the brokerage, about this the other day, and he was saying it's like you can take it, everyone in the GTA is like, oh man, I wish I bought 15 years ago when the prices were lower, the prices were this. Well, like Kingston's kind of like a snapshot, right? Like you can rewind the clock, and you can now, if you get into Kingston now, 10 years from now, people are going to be saying the same thing about Kingston. Like, oh man, well, I mean, people still say that now about Kingston, but 10 years from now, when things are a little bit more unattainable here, everyone's going to be like, man, I wish I was buying in Kingston back in 2024.
Yeah,
and we've got a launch event coming up on Saturday. Why don't you invite everybody out and tell us a bit about that there, Linus?
Yeah, for sure. So Sandra McKenna, one of our realtors, has put together an amazing event out in Odessa. It's on the corner of Dusenbury and Saul. If you're trying to find on Google Maps, it's like a newer subdivision. So just look for Dusenbury and Saul where those intersect. They've got 3 model homes there. We're going to be throwing a barbecue, free ice cream, free food, free cake. The mayor of Loyalist is coming out for it to do a ribbon cutting ceremony. It's really going to be a blast. And if you want to check out the homes too, we're gonna have the realtors taking people on tours of the model homes and everything. So hey, free food, right? If nothing else, come out for the free food and get some information about the new subdivision while you're there.
Yeah, I'll be hosting one of those open houses in the model homes. And if you can't find it, just look for all the open house signs that'll be lined the main drag through Odessa there. They'll point you in the right direction. We're going to have our signage flooded out there, and it's going to be a great day on Saturday.
I can't wait. You gonna be manning the barbecue, Mark?
I think that's Sandra's husband that's doing that.
It definitely is, like 100%. I might try and jump in for a little bit to help out and see, but I mean, I don't know. My skills in the barbecue probably aren't nearly as good as some other people in the room.
Right. The other competitive advantage to our area that you brought up the other day on one of your recordings was cottage country in the Kingston area, Frontenac County. You know, I moved here from Huntsville in the Muskokas a bunch of years ago now, probably 16, 17 years ago. But that market is totally tapped out in cottage country. And most of the people that live in the GTA, when they think of cottage country, they think about that location. But, you know, just the lakes that we have north of Kingston, they're phenomenal and it's not as crowded. Having traveled back and forth up Highway 11 and the 400 in that area, you're going to actually get to Kingston and the Kingston area and back from the Toronto area quicker than you would on so if you're heading up on a Friday afternoon, you're forever. And then if you're heading back to Toronto on the Sunday afternoon, you're forever. And I don't have to tell anyone that's listening to this how frustrating it is to be in gridlock traffic. I feel our cottage country in our area here is totally untapped, and anyone in the Toronto area or surrounding areas there, I really think that this is a market that really needs some attention because the lakes here are phenomenal.
Fighting that traffic up to the Muskokas from Toronto is not fun, right? Like right there, like I think you nailed it. It's a lot, even if you're in the GTA, like coming out this way and coming out east, there is a lot less traffic, and the cost of the properties for a similar property is much more attractive for cottage country here than it is in the Muskokas, because like you said, it is like a fully tapped marketplace, whereas there's a lot of waterfront available just north of the city. I know Danny does a lot of business up north of the city too, so he knows if more than anybody probably about those opportunities.
Yeah, it just seems like there's almost like a 30-minute cap though, as far as like, Lowbrow, Sydenham Lake, they're mostly year-rounders that live there. Once you get to like the northern part of Eel Bay, then you start to getting into cottage country. So maybe they're retired, or it just seems like it's a little too far for commuters. So I feel like everything north of there is actually some, like Mark were saying, like the lakes there are so nice. You got Devil, you got Buck, you got Bob's Lake. If anyone's been up there and they've been on the boat there, like they know how nice these lakes are. But we also saw obviously an explosion during COVID in 21 and 22 on these lakes from people coming in from Ottawa and Toronto trying to get away from the big city. But we've also seen the biggest hits on those property right now between 22 and 24. They've certainly come down, and there's bargains to be had there, especially now when we're coming into the winter time where sellers might want to unload one of their assets that you can certainly capitalize as a buyer, because money's becoming cheaper now. We're going to see another rate decrease most likely here in October, and look with the 1 year forecast up ahead, a lot of investors and financiers are expecting the rates to come down even further. So I do think there's a big opportunity there for cottage country properties, especially north of Sydenham Lake.
Yeah, and the other thing about those lakefront lots versus the Muskokas, like the Muskokas just has the houses or cottages or whatever you want to call these $1 million properties. They're jammed in next to each other, almost like a subdivision, right? Where in our area, like it's not unheard of to buy a lot that's 2 or more acres right on water, and you don't have to be right next to your neighbor. Like that tranquil setting that people would be looking for in the Muskoka is kind of left with the traffic up there and how closely those lots are slammed in, that it's just another selling feature to our area. Like the cottage country here is incredible.
Just to give a bit of a story, like we've got a cottage that's been in our family for over 100 years. They bought it for $150 off a farmer. They severed the lot, right? They've got, about 100 feet of waterfront there. But it was as rural as it gets. It was just near Innisfil, on Lake Simcoe. So like a really big lake, but it's changed completely, right? Like now all the lots are 30, 40 feet wide, right? And like just rammed next to each other, like you said too. And it almost feels like you are in a subdivision. Actually, across the street on the land side, there is a subdivision now. So it is a lot different. I mean, I'm not talking Muskoka because I'm talking like just out the Barrie, but still, like that's what happens when you have that crazy high demand for an area. Eventually, you're going to get to that like over densification of cottage country, but that hasn't hit north of Kingston. Hopefully, won't hit anytime soon. So yeah, hidden gems in Ontario.
For sure. Well, I'll swing this back to some hockey chatter. Every year, the Pittsburgh Penguins have the players deliver their season tickets to, from the players. They knock on their season ticket holders' doors and actually deliver the tickets. And I think that's such an incredible tradition. We've had video clips of Sidney Crosby playing street hockey with the kids on the door he knocks. Like, what an amazing community thing to do and to give back to your season ticket holders. Danny, have you ever been involved in anything like that with a hockey group? Like, tell us about some of your community involvement through hockey and the teams that you've been on.
Not to the extent where you're delivering, season tickets, but I would say routinely, at least once a year, we always would visit hospitals locally, their jerseys on. And you know what? With the booster clubs and booster teams and stuff, you get to know these fans that usually wait, and it's usually the same fans all the time. You do get close to them, the ones that stick around after the games, and you usually become good friends. Like the other day, I went to one of the France games. I think it was a Sunday afternoon game, and I saw one of the fans that I actually used to see all the time when I was 19. And it was nice to see them. And it's been almost 20 years, 20 years ago, and we still kind of just say, hi, how you doing? And it's funny, those lasting relationships. And but you see, all the places have been around the world, like you still would remember those people that, that supported the team. So I think it's a nice way to give back. Obviously, Pittsburgh does things the right way. Obviously, the first class organization there for guys like Crosby, first ballot Hall of Famer, to hand deliver season tickets. Like, what a gift that is, right? To sell seats.
And
make sure you're home for that or not.
Yeah,
100%. So Sidney Crosby renewed his contract, and him and Malkin and the other superstars on the Pittsburgh Penguins have been kind of vocal about taking a little less to have a more competitive team. Your thoughts on that, Danny? It seems like an amazing strategy. I was thinking the other day, if everyone takes a little less, you've got a more competitive team. Do you really is the possibility that you make that money back in endorsements because your team's doing better?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. Just recently, Draisaitl just signed his extension for $14 million. And so he signed what is, I think, almost the cap max for one player. I think it's actually 15.8% of the cap, and he signed for 14, which is the most. And that's Leon Draisaitl. Obviously, he's top 5 player in the league, but Crosby was by far the best player in the league for a long, long time, and he only made 8.7 because he wanted to win. So, and in saying that, like, he's got 3 Stanley Cups. He's got obviously another year left on this deal, plus another 2 with him signing at 8.7. But I think Crosby's just one of those guys that he's going to be in Pittsburgh forever. Not obviously when he's done playing, but he's going to get into management, and I think he knows that management's probably going to take care of him long after hockey, or at least as long as when he's done tying his skates up for a living. So I think if you ask around the hockey community, especially at the highest levels, like he is so well respected. Like he is in that Gretzky category, no question, as how much he's changed the game. As far as right now, in the next 3 years, do they have what it takes to win another Stanley Cup? I would say a lot of people would say no, but that will take nothing away from his career and what he's done for the game, and obviously his reputation. But I think the two signings there really, it changed hockey now with McDavid's contract coming up next year. He's going to get a little bit more than 14, and now it's going to change when Matthews' deals comes up, because he's going to push the bar even higher. I think McKinnon and McCarr are coming up for renewal. That's going to change the game. I mean, it's good for the players because they're going to get paid more. And when you look around at different sports, hockey's like really low on the totem pole for the highest paid player. Like you look at football, basketball, even golf, like with Scotty Scheffler, like he made $66 million this year. When you look around the other major sports and the number one player and what they're making compared to hockey, like hockey is very, very low. So I do think that is good for the game, what Draisaitl just did, because it's going to raise everybody else up. But I do love and respect what obviously Crosby's done, not only with his contract, but also for the game too. Sorry, that was a little bit long-winded. But.
No, I love it. And it made me think, when you're comparing contracts, it's almost like when we do a comparative market evaluation on houses. It's like, okay, well, that house has all this, but this one has this much more, so it should be worth. Is that kind of how contracts go in sports? Also, you're comparing.
Funny you mentioned that. Elliot Friedman talked about that on his podcast this week, and when they talked about not just Crosby, but just other players in general for age. For games played, time on ice, and how production. And then when other contracts come for renewal with other teams that are, technically restricted, that these players can't sign anywhere else. They have a certain number in mind based on what other people have signed for. So yeah, it's funny. They're definitely another piece of meat, in the NHL for what they can provide, and they do use signing comparables. Absolutely.
I'd like to see how in depth they go with I'm going to call it a comparative market analysis, but for players when they're talking about contract negotiations, because I feel like it could be very formulaic, especially with advanced stats and everything too. But, like you plug in their Corsi and their goals, assists, like all that stuff. You should almost be able to spit out like, yeah, this is what, given all the other players what they've signed for, this is what your contract should probably be, right? Like it feels like it's so advanced stats and like all thought through in the number side of things more than it maybe used to be, right? Whereas like, you kind of like have the eye test and like you just know like they're good players. They look at their goals, their assists, and use those only as comparables.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think the two big ones right now going into the year, the biggest one would be Jeremy Swayman, who has not re-signed with Boston. And they're left with, if they don't have Swayman that back, they actually don't have any goalie with any NHL experience. And then the next one coming up for renewal is Igor Shesterkin. And looks like he's going to be the highest paid goalie once he signed his contract. It'll be more than Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I'm sure it's no different when you get into, basketball or football, when you look at, comparable stats and Corsi stats and in-depth analysis.
So if you could be the GM for any team, Danny, which one would you want to be a GM for?
I don't know.
Pick one.
Pick one. That's a great question. I mean, the Oilers would be fun because I feel like they obviously just went to the Stanley Cup. I'm very interested to see how they do this year. They obviously got some of the two best players in the league, but how are they going to filter the roster with other players? Obviously players are now inclined to take discounts to come to Edmonton and sign there because they know that they're going to win. I think Elliot Friedman talked about that. Players that have a no trade clause to Edmonton have reached out to the GMs to say, hey, you can take Edmonton off no trade list because it's now desirable, even though taxes are higher and it's long winters. But obviously with the attraction of McDavid and Draisaitl, and everybody saw what the atmosphere it was in Edmonton, it's now a destination.
How things have changed in the last 10 years. It used to be like the worst place to go, right? For players.
Yeah.
Couldn't get out of
So
there
I've got
fast
a
enough.
question about contracts and the business of sport. Danny, you played in the KHL for a while. You brought up Rory McIlroy recently as being one of the highest paid athletes, but I suspect that John Rahm actually made more money this year because he moved over to Live Golf and won the year-end championship. I don't know that for certain, but I know he won a ton of money in that last event. Would you ever see the KHL starting to pay players more to bring them over to Russia? And I know this happened in a couple instances already, but could you see a mass amount of players moving over to the KHL or another league that might be created to try to draw these players away? You mentioned that they're, as far as our mainstream professional sports goes, that they're I don't want to use the word underpaid because that's crazy to think that making millions of dollars playing sports is underpaid. But could you ever see a scenario like that where that happens, where there's a new league created?
Yeah, with hockey, I don't think so. Like I do enjoy like the Live Golf stuff. I do enjoy the structure, but I also enjoy the structure of the PGA. Now, as far as the KHL, they have paid players a lot of money to leave the NHL. I think the biggest one would have been Jaromir Jagr. Like that was a big signing where he was making a lot of money in Russia to come over and hopefully grow the game. You're not seeing that as much anymore. Obviously, with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it's a little bit, obviously, it's a less desirable spot to go. Although you are still seeing a number of imports there. The imports are still going there and playing. I still have a number of friends over there still playing, and they're still enjoying playing hockey there, even though there's obviously a lot of conflict over there. But as far as bringing another league, it'll be tough. I do think the NHL is the best place, or it's the best league in the world, and it is getting a lot better. There's a new collective bargaining agreement coming up here over the next couple of years. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, where the players will hopefully get some more rights to their names. I think another big part of the NHL and growing is the expansion of Utah. From moving that team from Phoenix to Utah, I know Phoenix was losing a lot of money for a lot of years. Looks like Utah is going to be doing very well right off the get-go. So it's only good for the game.
You kind of flew by some political stuff there, and I'm going to lean right into it.
Okay.
Since our last podcast, we had a U.S. political debate. And I know you have strong opinions when it comes to this, and we'll head there. Linus may want to stay on. He might not want to stay on. I don't know. Maybe he wants to monitor us and make sure we don't go too far with
We'll see where this goes.
But
yeah. We'll see if there's any red dots coming on my forehead.
I might just casually just move off frame and disappear here.
No, it won't be
but it was really interesting, Kamala, from all records and in my personal opinion, really did manage herself incredibly in that debate. And I'll throw it over to you, Danny, because I know you have some opinions as far as how the questions kind of led to certain things.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the whole debate. So I did watch snippets of it, and I do like to watch what the left are saying and what the right's saying. A lot of people have the opinion that Kamala Harris won that debate. I would say Trump said a lot of things that he probably shouldn't have said. And I mean, as politicians, that's going to happen. But I will say the fact that it was aired on ABC, which is typically a left-wing news broadcast, Trump was fact-checked 5 or 6 times where Kamala Harris was not. So if you can if they're going to have a debate, it would be nice to have it on a neutral territory. Or if you're going to have 2 debates, put one on a left-wing news media broadcast and one on the right wing. So you can kind of have it as fair play. But It'll be really interesting to see how things shake out here in November in the States, because we are directly affected as Canadians as to who's in charge down there. So I think for me, as far as like, world leaders, I mean, is there a good one right now? In as far as world leaders, like you look around the world and it's tough to say. I'll be like, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's more so with policies. I think it's really important to take care of your own people first and then worry about others second. It's no different than your family. You're going to take care of your family first and then worry about other people second. And I just wish that governments would do that more with our own country, and that countries would do that as well, especially the United States. Like, just take care of your own first and take care of things that are really important to your own people who are paying your taxes. And then, if there are funds left over, then, obviously you can do and see as you wish. But I'm glad I'm not voting down in the States. I can say that right now.
Yeah, it really was interesting to watch. Who would you suggest would be a neutral moderator for these?
That's a great question, because I feel like everyone's kind of picked their sides, right? As far as you say media influencers. Like the biggest one right now, I would say, is Elon Musk, but he's already endorsed Trump, so you could take him out of the picture, right? I can't think of anybody else. Grant Cardone, he's a big media and obviously real estate influencer. He's obviously endorsed Trump, so that's not really a big broadcasting space. I guess you could say maybe Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan tends to favor Trump, but I feel like he does a fairly good job of asking the simple questions and simplifying things so that for complicated situations that he'd be able to explain in layman's terms. But that might be a good spot to put both Kamala and Trump.
Yeah, really
I don't
interesting.
see why you couldn't have two moderators, one from each side as well, right? To try and like balance it a little bit, so you can have both kind of perspectives on it, both people on the corner of both candidates present in the same room to make sure that everything does kind of play a bit more on neutral territory.
Yeah, I agree.
Linus, you're really studied in the real estate market. How do you think politics will affect our industry? And if you don't want to answer that, we can just skip by it.
How much time do you have, right? One of the problems with government policies is it's typically very reactionary, right? Or any of the things they do tends to have like very long-term impacts, right? Because you might look back and be like, oh man, like I know Daniel loves to talk about the building supply all the time, how like the lack thereof, but the policies you're making now aren't going to take any sort of practical effect in terms of shovels in the ground, houses being built for several years. So anything that we're looking at now, be like, hey, we're in a really crappy position at the moment. It's because of decisions that were made 5, 10 plus years ago. So I'm not sure if this is the most popular stance, but I do think that honestly, a lot of political parties, they're going to govern the country fairly similarly at the end of the day. Like there's a lot of political rhetoric, leading up to campaigns and whatnot. But at the end of the day, once you're there and you're actually governing the country, a lot of the decisions are going to be fairly similar. Obviously, there's nuances to those. So I think long term, if you're talking Canada, liberals, conservatives, yeah, there's probably slight nuances to both, but I don't think long term they're going to have as much impact on the economy as people may think. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I feel like everyone says what they're going to say, and then they get in office, and then you're like, oh, I can't do any of that because of X, Y, and Z, and we're obviously not privy to that information until you get in there. But it'll be interesting to see. Because you're right, everyone says great things when they're campaigning, but can you pony up when you actually get in there?
It's a very jaded view to have, but we've been through enough governments and stuff to be able to see that, right? And governments are great lightning rods. They tend to have a life cycle. You're in government for roughly 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it ends up being, and then people get angry enough they want to change, and they force a change for the sake of making change more than anything. So. yeah, just like realtors, politicians make great lightning rods for issues.
It's so wise, Linus.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll wrap that up.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks, Linus. Thank our guest today on Pucks, Putts, and Properties, Linus Kilius, our managing broker.
Great to have you on there.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
Century
first
21
guest.
Heritage Group. Yeah. And if you made this all the way to the end, I encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. He's Danny Taylor. I'm Mark Strachan. This is Century 21 Heritage Group, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, it's lovely. Pleasure.
See you guys. Thanks again.
Yeah.